warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Isa Wood, the former Muslim coordinator of Elon University and now the Southeastern Regional Director for Al-Furqan Foundation. Now, many of you here already know about the organization, but for those who don't, let me briefly explain. We are the organization that for over 10 years now has been giving out the English translation of the meaning of the Quran for free to non-Muslims all over the country in prisons, hospitals, hotel rooms, dorm rooms, and retirement communities. And for Masajid, we subsidize the cost, which this book should be $15. We give it to you for $2 a piece. And alhamdulillah, this has been an incredibly successful project. We've given out over 600,000 copies in these short 10 years. And alhamdulillah, many of you are already involved. Now, Al-Furqan Foundation has now moved over into Furqan Project, which is a division of Furqan Foundation. What we're trying to do is form partnerships with masajid all over the country. One of the themes that I saw going through this entire conference so far is unity, Muslims working together for the same effort. So Al-Furqan Foundation would like to be your go-to source for all Quran needs, all of your dawah needs. We would like to provide the service for you of giving you Qurans for free. We would like to provide the service of you of training your community in da'wah, to create monthly open houses where you invite the community to learn about Islam. We would like to give you discounts on our bookstore. And we do this by forming a partnership with you. We provide these services to you, and all we ask for you in return is that you give us 2 opportunities a year to come to your community and remind them about our project. They can sponsor the cases of Qurans that we give out by themselves or on the behalf of a relative who's passed away. And this is just an opportunity once a year for Jummah and another opportunity a year during Ramadan. And we just come by to visit to remind the community about the project, inshallah. Now, alhamdulillah, let me talk briefly about some of the fruits of this. If you don't believe that giving out translations of the Quran is something that we should be doing, then let me tell you that almost 6 years ago today, someone gave me a copy of the Quran. Alhamdulillah, it was the beginning of my journey to Islam. This Quran that we give out has a number inside of it on the first page. And this number is where you can call and ask questions about the Quran and get answers to your questions. Just 2 nights ago, a 72-year-old man in the middle of nowhere in Montana who received a copy of our Quran called and literally begged me to tell him how to become a Muslim. Now, wallahi, brothers, you would cry if you heard how sincere this man was. He was extremely disturbed and worried that Allah would not be happy with him because he was 72 and had had knee surgery and couldn't make sujood. So I've spent as much time as I can to explain to him that La yukallifullahu nafsan illa wus'aha. That Allah doesn't expect that from you, brother. If you can't do it, you just do your best. But alhamdulillah, this is just one story of many stories from our organization and this dawah effort that we're a part of. So what am I asking you for? Well, brothers and sisters, I'm asking you to spend some time and come by today and talk to us. Talk about how you can become a Furqan partner. Our organization does lots of other stuff besides dawah. It's on the back of your naif pamphlet. You can read about all the other things we do with the Quran. I'm asking you also to put prison chaplains and people who visit hospitals in touch with us so that we can help them get the materials they need. We don't just have Qurans, we have dawah pamphlets as well. And I'm asking you, of course, to continue to remind your shura members and your masajid that by giving to any Islamic organization, whether it's us or any of the ones that present to us, is not going to take away from their ability to expand the masjid or build a cemetery or any of the other projects they have, inshallah. The Prophet Muhammad told us very clearly that charity does not diminish from your wealth, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So jazakallah khair for your time, and a personal thank you to Omar Shaheen, because his emails helped me get this job at Furqan Foundation. So once again, something else that Dave does for the community. Thank you very much. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi. Question, sure.
Why this specific translation if your purpose is da'wah?
There's many reasons why we use the translation that we do. My boss is here right here, and if you want to speak to him about the translation, it's not a problem. He can help you answer it. Yes. This is Wajah Saeed, the founder of...
One minute. Since he asked the question. It's not really that we're locked into a particular translation. But at the time when we were doing the research, we wanted a translation that was approved by an authority. So this has been approved by Azhar University and also in Malaysia. That's why we printed this one. I am working to get the Sahih International rights as well to publish. And inshallah, soon you will see more copies. But it's not that we are the translators, but we thought this was a good translation developed here by somebody native from this country rather than importing it. And it is something that he gave us the rights to publish, inshallah. But it's a decent, modern, simple English translation. And I'll be here to answer questions.
We have another brother, Sheikh Farid, who will talk about Dalil. Or Dalil.
Assalamu alaikum. Actually, I wasn't prepared for this talk, but inshallah I'll try to make it as quickly and as clear as possible. For us as Muslims here in the United States, we see a lot of efforts being done, and jazakum Allah khair, and may Allah bless everybody for his noble effort and sincere effort, inshallah. However, we always feel that the efforts that we do is scattered. It's not organized, it's not well put together. And the result we're seeking really is moving, but it's moving very slow. A lot of times we hear imams and mashayikh and masajid and even business community members. They ask, what are we going to do? How are we going to change this? How is that going to change? We need to connect. We need to unite. We need to improve. We need to do this. Yet at the same time, up till now, as a community, we don't know exactly how many number of masajid we have, exact addresses and phone numbers, exact the number of people in charge, people at the Jummah. We don't know how many even Muslims exist in the United States. We don't know even how many community-owned businesses we have. We don't know how much money we spend as a community wealth in this country. And with all the education we have and all the degrees and the businesses and the skills and the talent and the expertise and the willingness and inshallah the sincerity for the sake of Allah, yet we still don't have anything. So a group of brothers about 3 years ago decided, you know what, a journey of 1,000 miles begin with one step. So they developed a mobile application that will connect the masajid to their congregation. Every Friday, the moment the imam is done, somebody stands to make announcements, everybody walks out of the masjid, a lot of the announcements go unheard and nobody in the community knows what's going on. Every time we collect money, we raise funds, we have a hard time collecting our pledges. Every time we have an event, we have a hard time making it on a city level or even letting the community members themselves aware of it. Every time we need something, we have to really hustle and go through a lot of hardship and hard work to make this thing happen, and at the same time, it didn't happen in its utmost phase. So the brothers in the company, there is 13 of us. May Allah make our intention sincere, that we said enough is enough. As Muslims, we have to start establishing a social network for our community. We have to connect the community members with their masjid. We have to make it efficient, instantaneous, and effective. And then we're going to take that network and connect it with other masajids in the area and then other masajids in the United States. And from there, as a Muslim community, our needs in Canada are the same, our needs in Europe are the same, our needs in New Zealand are the same, our needs in any non-Muslim country, the needs of the Muslims are the same. So we established a mobile application called Dalilo. Dalilo is free of charge for the people to download, but there is a program we developed to empower the masajid and also to empower the businesses that are within the vicinity of those masajid. Because after all, when we want to build a masjid, what do? We go to the masajid, the business people. We want to expand our masajid, what do? We go to the business people. We want to raise money for a certain project or a certain organization or a certain cause, we go target our business people. It's a good time for us to establish this connection. And one thing also as imams, there is a gap between the Muslim consumer and the business owner. The business owner doesn't want to do business with the Muslim community as members, and the members don't want to do business with the business owner, a Muslim business owner. So I suggest, as imams, inshallah, help us to make this project worthy and make this project possible, inshallah. and also try to touch on lectures or talks or exercises the importance of the Muslim businesses and Muslim consumers to connect together for a stronger community. Jazakum Allah khair wa barakallah fikum.
What's the website? What's the spelling of the app?
It's D as in, it's out of Dalil, D-A-L-E-E-L-O, Dalilo, with an O at the end. It's available in the mobile app store and the Android as well, inshallah. I would like if you guys can just drop me your business card with your information so we can contact you, inshallah. You can customize the donations you're collecting for. You can send push notification to your community members with the announcements they are interested in. Jazakumullah.
Barakallah fiik. Thank you very much. Go back for 5 minutes to the Quran, inshallah, with Sheikh Abdullah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون واعتصموا بحبل الله جميعا ولا تفرقوا واعتصموا بحبل الله جميعا ولا تفرقوا واذكروا نعمة الله عليكم واذكروا نعمة الله عليكم إذ كنتم أعداء فألف بين قلوبكم فأصبحتم بنعمته إخوانا وكنتم على شفا حفرة من النار فأنقذكم منها كذلك يبين الله لكم آياته لعلكم تهتدون ولتكن منكم أمة ويأمرون بالمعروف وينهون عن المنكر وأولئك هم المفلحون ولا تكونوا كالذين تفرقوا واختلفوا من بعد ما جاءهم البينات وأولئك لهم عذاب عظيم. يوم تبيض وجوه وتسود وجوه فأما الذين اسودت وجوههم أكفرتم بعد إيمانكم فذوقوا العذاب بما كنتم تكفرون. وأما الذين ابيضت وجوههم ففي رحمة الله هم فيها خالدون. تلك آيات الله نتلوها عليك بالحق وما الله يريد ظلما للعالمين ولله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وإلى الله ترجع الأمور. صدق الله العظيم.
بارك الله فيك. الحمد لله. اللهم اجعلنا ممن ابيضت وجوههم. آمين. Now our open discussion session with the Sheikh Amin al-Latif.
And I raise my hand. Where is one?
Assalamu alaikum.
Please come up to the front, inshallah. So start shooting. I raise my hand there.
Okay, just hold on a minute. Iman?
Those who spoke,
Oh, I
those
got
who
you,
spoke
I got you,
today,
I
can
got
come
you.
to the front, please.
Before
before we start, Assalamu alaikum wa barakatuh. Let me have your attention, okay? I didn't know I was going to be on this program, and so Dr. Omar Shaheen, he put me on the program to handle or moderate this session. So this is an important session, an open session where people can express their ideas, and we can share, we can learn. But before we do that, I'd like to make a brief comment, telling a short story, and give some nasiha to naif, if you don't mind, if that's okay with you. Is that okay? And I'll be as brief as I can. In 2010, in the summer of 2010, the Islamic phobia that was going on in this country, it reached its peak. It was high level. And it's returning again, if you notice the emails that CARE sends out on a regular basis. It has gotten worse, okay? And I think we all understand why. And but in 2010, September 2010, Islamic Leadership Council of New York felt the need that we need to have a leadership summit. You know, when things go on in the world and leaders start gathering, we need to have a summit to deal with the crisis. So at that time, I was still the president of the Majlis Ashura of New York, and I consulted Imam Siraj Wahaj and a number of other imams. I said, we need to have a summit, man. This is serious. And they all agreed. So we sent out a call across the nation. I don't know what happened, how naif wasn't a part of it, but anyway, we sent out a call across the nation. And all of the leaders of all of the top organizations in America, ISNA, MAS, CARE, all of them responded positively and said, yes, Imam, you're right. We will come to New York, and we hosted that summit at JFK Airport at one of the hotels. Now, when the press found out that the clerics, listen to me, the clerics, or the Islamic clerics, or the imams are having this national summit, they had a story. Wow. And so the headline in the news was hundreds of imams and clerics across the nation is coming to New York. So the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, all of the top news agencies came out to the hotel and they wanted to story. We wouldn't say nothing. No, we said after we finish. But the point I'm making with this is how they responded. The word cleric and imam in this country resonates with these people. You got to understand and recognize who you are, as Dr. Syed Abu Abdullah mentioned in his presentation. Who you are. You know, who you are, how powerful you are. As a leadership group, you have responsibility. And we should not be afraid to step to it. And so my advice to Nate, you know, take advantage of what you are and who you are. You're the leaders of the Muslims in this nation here. And we need to stop, and we need to start playing that role, you see, and begin to advise the brothers, the executive board of NAIF and the people and each other. You see, one of the goals of NAIF, as I learned years ago, was to empower the imam and make the imams feel empowered and confident. So that when they come to these conferences, they go back and be confident and address their community for what they learned. And the people will respect him. We're talking about raising the spirit of the ummah, the women, the youth in our community. You see, they need to see the imams as being heroes and leaders and people who are strong in their faith that give them guidance in the Christ that we live in today. That's what we need to be. And this is my advice to NAIF. So NAIF, in closing, NAIF has to become more visible in my view. Become more visible and more vocal. When things happen in this country, it should just be CARE and ISNA and ICNA. Where's NAIF? Where's the leadership? Making a statement. When people begin to see that NAIF or NAIF, you know, or AMJA, the scholars of Islam, the people who are guided, the people who are leading the masjid are making these statements. Not just the regular service-oriented institutions making the statements for us, man. We have to make some of a body of imams and leaders start making statements to deal with all these crises that are going on in the Muslim world. Then the people in your community spirits will rise automatically. They need heroes. they need to have confidence and respect. You know, in closing, one of the imams, you know, when I got here, he said, I told the board, my board, that I was going to the imams conference, you know, so I can learn, so I can come back and bring the good, you know, back to the community. And the board said he couldn't go. You can't go. So he had to argue with them. Why should that be? When the imam said, I'm going to a conference, that's it, man, going to a conference to be with the other imams, you see. So when we come here, we're supposed to feel empowered. When I come here around other imams, I feel empowered. That's how I'm supposed to feel. So when I go back to my community, you see, we need to change that. We need to change that. So when you come back to your community respect you. So I wanted to make that statement to the brothers as an advice, inshallah, man. You know, you have tremendous responsibility. So inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raise us to that so we can do the job, inshallah, and give some direction and guidance and confidence to our community, inshallah. Now the floor is open. And the question, please, you know, inshallah, let us, you know, inshallah, raise our hands, and by hand, inshallah, I'll call you. And
this is inshallah, let me just make a quick reminder, inshallah. This is meant to be an open session for everybody to express himself, but we're trying to accommodate everybody, inshallah. So express yourself, and if you have a question, or if you have any concern, say it clear to the point, so we accommodate as many as possible, inshallah.
1 minute, inshallah.
And also, please stick to one place in here, so the camera can get you.
Imam Said.
Bismillah. Number one, when I come to such a gathering like this, I'm expecting to learn and also to work and to serve. But I don't want to learn something wrong. Okay? And if I assume that there is something wrong, it is my duty as a Muslim, as a student of knowledge, that I voice my personal opinion so I can be corrected if I am wrong. Number one. So I'm expecting everything to be done or to be said in this conference to be Islamically because you are imams. So when I hear, as example, somebody using evidence with hadith that is weak, I think this need to be checked and be informed to all the imams the hadith is weak. Like as well, example, what we heard is this morning about al-hikmah dallatul mu'min. Number two, when one of the speakers say we're going to start with what is the most important thing, نبدأ بما الأهم ثم يبدأ بتلاوة القرآن. First of all, this has become a culture or a practice in every gathering. The Prophet ﷺ did not start any conference or any meeting or any khutbah with قراءة القرآن. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه. Which I did not hear it from all the imams that talk today, other than one imam only. When the imams hear the Quran and they say Allah, Allah, is this sunnah or this is your culture? So what you doing here? You're supposed to be imam, you're supposed to be leader, you're supposed to watch everything. What you doing? I'm a student of knowledge, I'm going to learn from you. And when the imam or the recites the Quran, say A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajim, I understand. But when you say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, you did not start the surah. And when you say Sadaq Allah al-Azim in the end of your recitation, from where you guys got these things? We need unity of imams, but unity based on what? Learning sunnah, or we practice our culture and bid'ah or whatever, or this is istihsan. Tell me what it is. So I'm expecting everything, inshallah, to be here Islamically so we can correct each other. Nevertheless, when one person say, okay, it's time for me to take my, my abaya, so I can talk to the youth. What do you mean by a statement like this, take your abaya? Which is supposed to be a tradition dress as example. So what we try to get what is the methodology for approaching youth? We're going to change everything. Do you think when you take your abaya that the youth is going to listen to you? Why everybody is so concerned about putting a tie? But I don't see every man concerned about putting a kufi as example. What is wrong with us? We are not going to change so to make the people Muslim or to come to Islam. لَيْسَ عَلَيْكَ هُدَاهُمْ. Finally, I say that we be careful about doing things that is not Islamically with good intention. And like I said, some of the imams, talking about we're going to make some i'tikaf for 10 months a week, and they're going to give them khutbah Jum'ah, and they practice it, and all these things. Did the Sahaba did this? Did the Sahaba have children? And we're talking about what? We do not have a super imam here in America. So, if the parents have neglected the children, who are you talking about coming to the mosque? You're going to do all these programs for them. I want to thank you for allowing me to talk. Jazakumullah khair.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Allahu Akbar. Good, brother. What's your name, man? Sheikh? What's your name? Shukran.
I'm sorry, What? Half a minute, I'm sorry. I forgot. Brothers, to help you about your da'wah program for non-Muslims, Islam aids, for helping you about the new Muslims, Dr. Shahada, know about Salah, to learn about Muslims who born Muslim and raised Muslims, they don't know the proper Aqidah. I'm not trying to make a business. If you don't have the money, I can give you a case for free for your mosque. But you have to know the source from where you got it. And instead of paying $15 for this, for Dar es Salaam as a Zambi, you can get it for $1 or $2, or you can say, I don't have it. I'll send you the book. Thank you. Muhammad Saad Adli, and the information is here.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I have, my name is Uthman Shibli. I'm from Buffalo, New York. I'm a dentist and periodontist, but backup imam. When some imam is not available, I go give khutbah. Four suggestions. One is, as we all know from this discussion in the morning, imams are coming from different background in their Islamic teachings. My advice, because I had this experience in Buffalo, that regardless of the school of thought that we are coming from, our focus should be on Islam itself, not to pressure people that this is the only school of thoughts. Meaning, like if one is Hanafi is doing, and he was asked question in the masjid, should express his opinion, but at the same time, he should say, this is what I follow. If someone is doing something else based on Shafi'i or whatever, or Hanafi or Maliki, that's also correct. Because sometimes differences happen. And that comes to also Sufi, Salafi, all other school of thoughts in Islam. The second point is, I would like to suggest that for the conference for next year, inshallah, to have women scholars come, because when we talked about the youth, there are women youth as well. They will be familiar. So I will share with the board and brother Omar Shaheen to invite to be part of this women scholars as well. Third, no, just I'm saying, I'm suggesting.
Women scholars.
Because they will address girls, youth, from their perspective. Fourth point, when the first time I was introduced to naif, I told them, why you are using naif, Muslims, naif, whatever. So I suggest, this is also suggested, to call it American Imam Association. It will be AIA. AIA.
Yes.
So that's a suggestion. AIA, American Islamic Association, AIA. That's beautiful too. And also like with the Quran distribution, that's excellent idea. But if they will put at the beginning of the Quran an introduction about Islam, the beauty of Islam, then they can read the Quran. This way, it will be more educated. So Quran, but plus introduction about the beauty of Islam. Last point also, nobody talked about it, is as we discussed the youth, the rising also, some people, they are reading Islam, but at the same time, some people become so extremist in their opinion to address the rising of extremism. And the last point, inshallah, there is really this is the last one, there is big challenge for all of us. Unfortunately, there is huge attack even on moderate Muslim, the very moderate Muslim. There's a news that in Egypt, I hope it's not correct, that they stopped teaching Islam in the schools. It was on the news that they replace it with moral book about morals. And we know also the naming some of the some of the best Muslim organizations in America to be named terrorists. You know, there is really something scary the way was sounding. So he told me to start.
Good clarification, inshallah.
Just a clarification for what brother said. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Yeah, I agree with you, brother, that every man, whenever he receives fiqh question, should clarify other opinions. Because if he insists in one opinion, one madhab, then will يضيق واسع, will make the issues tough on the Muslims, while Islam is, our Islam is based on alhamdulillah, السعة والتوسيع والاعتراف بالآخر, to admit that there is another opinion, to give a choice for your community to choose. If there is possibility, because you know as Imam, there is no room for these differences. But if there is room, please mention others' opinion. Regarding inviting sisters, I'm a member of the Board of Trustees. We're gonna discuss this issue. But I ask Brother Amr, please, to write down the main suggestion which we receive now, because we're gonna get benefit out of it during our meetings to develop our next conference, inshallah. Your suggestion, your even criticism, complaints are very welcome. Jazakallah khair.
Okay, brother. Assalamu alaikum.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. Marwan Saladin from Phoenix. قيمة الكلام في وقته. My question was valuable at that time when I was trying my best to squeeze that question at that time. Now, I don't know if it's valuable or not. We talk about the youth one more time. That's why I said, the time is there, not now. However, I'm going to repeat the question one more time. The majority of the
youth,
children, especially the teenage and the elders, the majority are not in the masjid. You're talking about the children, the imam. You're talking about the children when they come to you. You're not going to them. When they are there and you're telling me all kind of good suggestions, how you're going to treat the children, by activities, by being humble to them, by trying to understand their language, by trying to be understanding their brain, their mentality, and how they do. But you're talking about children that they already somehow, either they are regularly coming to the masjid or once a while, or their parents push them to go to the masjid just to maybe they want them to be good. So there is a lot of parents, they thinking, as I said, that if when they have an aggressive and offended child and they need him to be good, they thinking that if they send him to the imam has a magic hand, he put his hand on his shoulder, that boy will turn to be excellent. Now, most of the children, they don't come to the masjid. How can we get those? And I heard some book that written by some of the people that they are in sociology. He has an analysis said that let the Muslims do their masajid, let them practice as they want. 2 or 3 generations will be dissolved, will be disappeared from the society. That scares me. While meanwhile the Jewish 3,000 years since they become Jewish, until now they still call themselves Jewish, and they still generation after generation, they pass the flag from father to son, son to the son. And I'm very much afraid that we will be dissolved after 2 or 3 generations, because the majority of the children, look, you have 20 children coming to the masjid, there is 200 children are not there in the masjid. How can we get those? That's my question. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Very good point, brother.
Next.
Nobody want to talk? I will talk. You scared to raise your hand or raise my hand?
Come on, brother. Come on.
Anyways, بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. First of all, I want to thank Dr. Shaheen and naif, not knife, naif, for putting this function together. Alhamdulillah, it's a very blessed and beneficial function, even though myself am not an imam. I am a student of knowledge, alhamdulillah, and I ask Allah to accept. And I had two things that I wanted to comment. One is about the new Muslims, and the other is about the outreach to indigenous students of knowledge in particular. The first one about the new Muslims, I'm a graduate from the Islamic University of Medina, and I've been back in the United States for the past 2 years. And since I've been back, one of the ways that I see that the many masajid treat new Muslims and people who embrace Islam, the best way that I could put it is they treat them like stepchildren. They treat them like stepchildren. As if a father, for example, marries a woman and she already has children, and you say, yeah, I'm married to your mom, you're my kid, but you're not really my kid. And we see that's how many of the new Muslims are treated when they embrace Islam. I've been teaching new Muslims by accident. I had left a book in a room one day, and I happened to come in while they were discussing who are they going to have as a teacher for their class. And they said, oh, the brother from Medina is here. Yes, he will be our teacher. And I've been teaching their class for the last year. However, at the masjid that I teach at, they very rarely have any accommodations for them. They put them in the worst classroom. They have very few functions in English, in spite of the fact that they come on a regular basis. And this is just one example of the many masajid, and the reason why I mentioned I'm from Medina is that I met students from all over the United States. So many of the different states that you imams come from, I have met with students who have studied, and then they go back to your respective states, and yet they still have the same story that I have. And it was also brothers from Florida, brothers from Texas, brothers from Connecticut, brothers from Maryland, brothers from all over the United States, and it's always the same story. However, when I heard about imams and their position and what they can do, I heard a lot about how to outreach to non-Muslims, how to outreach to the government, organizations, and so on. But those very people who have already embraced Islam, who could be a tremendous help for your masjid and your community because they're from here and they know this place and they know what's going on here, they could benefit you. Instead, they are minimalized and kind of put in a corner, and like I said, treated as stepchildren. I would hope to see that change, bi'idhnillah. And the second thing is about the outreach to students of indigenous Muslims who embrace Islam and then go on to further their studies in the deen and then be utilized in the masajid. They went and they studied, whether they studied at Azhar or they studied in Malaysia or they studied in Pakistan or they studied wherever, Medina, what have you. They come and they want to support you imams. I actually myself, free of charge, offered an imam to be an assistant to him for free, and he refused me. And he doesn't even speak English. He doesn't even speak. I offered for free to work full-time in his masjid. I will be your assistant. I will translate for you. I will serve you. I will be a connection for you to the youth. And billah alaykum, he refused me. And I'm a graduate from Jamia Islamiyah. I don't mean that, حتى أفتخر أمامكم, but just to say that I was in Medina for 10 years. And I have to beg imams in my community to use me and utilize me. And in Minnesota, we have a culture that, for the most part, people who speak English, they don't get paid when you give khutbahs and so on. So I don't even ask for money. And then a similar story I hear when I speak to my brothers, when I stay in contact with those who we were studied together, brothers who are in New Jersey, actually they're a little better off in New Jersey, but in other places, the same thing. The imams, instead, they see us as a threat. I actually had an imam who told me, I begged him for an entire summer, let me teach a class in your masjid, and he said, and he waited till the entire summer to finish. Then he said, why? Why do you want to teach in my masjid? You're going to talk about my aqidah, of course, because you studied in Saudi Arabia. You're going to talk about my minhaj. You're going to talk about so on, your Wahhabi and so on. And I said, in spite of the fact that I had legitimate differences, I said, I would never do that. I would only want to serve the people and serve you. I don't know him. I just wanted to say an outreach specifically from naif, to outreach to those who are students of knowledge, that they would come and also to share from their experiences. Jazakumullah khair.
Keep in mind, brothers, alhamdulillah, we're writing down some of these ideas.
I am from naif and I'm reaching you. Please come to Colombia.
Yes.
You will get a job, you get money, you get a wife, you get everything. Come to Colombia, South Carolina.
No problem. Okay,
Bring them all, brother.
Okay, and may I suggest also, I have the mic, brothers. Yeah, may I suggest also, in the light of what the brother said, I think again, some of these big massages and Islamic centers need to look at some of the indigenous Muslims who have good knowledge, all right, to recruit them and bring them in to be able to deal with that follow-up with the new shahadas and whatnot. Because sometimes that may be a cultural thing. And I hear the same complaints, in the New York area, So we need to look at consulting the brothers, the indigenous brothers who have some experience, that have some knowledge to help in that regard. And do the follow-up work, with the new shahadas and the people that are becoming Muslim, inshallah. It's nothing like that.
I have a request for the brother because he presented
Yep. Okay.
1 second, Akhi. Give him a second, please.
Give us like 5 different ways that we can put into practice.
Okay.
So we can improve. So let him go and tell us, teach us, and I give him also invitation to come to another.
He can see you after.
No, Akhi, I asked him to come to Colombia.
Okay, brother.
Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah khair, Brother Ilyas, for bringing up a very important issue here, and that is the role of the indigenous Muslims and all the reverts who are making strong effort to study the deen and come back and be the spearhead in doing da'wah. Now, we have a special conference coming up next month in Orlando on the December 19th, 20th, and 21st, called American Islam Conference. It's an annual conference, and we focus specifically on what you were speaking about, the da'wah and the youth. Those are the two main components of the conference. And most of our speakers on the conference, you can pick up this little brochure, you will see are young people, youth, people who either reverted to Islam or were born here and understand the culture, but they're young. They're not necessarily very well-known imams, even though there are a bunch of them on the flyer. But the focus is really reaching out to the youth and bringing them back to the deen, because they're not going to come on their own. We have to go to them, and we need you. We need people like you, Brother Ilyas, who have gone and studied, okay, to take your rightful position. Your experience, I don't think applies everywhere. We have, in our community in Orlando, 10 masjids and the one administration, we have Imam Hatim, who is a revert, who is an imam, a leader in our community. And most of our staff are really reverts and young. So you're very welcome in our community.
Brother, I asked him to come to my community. You could not oversell, أخي. لا يبيع بعضكم على بيع بعض يا أخي. سبحان الله.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'd like to briefly elaborate a little bit, go back to the youth topic and subject. Brothers, we don't want to think that everyone in Islamic centers, especially the youth, are okay. We have a problem in our youth, in our Islamic center with the youth. We have drugs issues. We have homosexuality issues. We have a lot of stuff going on in our Islamic centers sometimes. I would like to address a couple of issues very briefly. If we don't deal with this issue, it's a really serious problem. And do not expect the Imam will handle this. Imam, the last person to come to know about this, because he doesn't have a trust for the youth. I had to play skateboarding with the youth. I had to go with them everywhere to try to gain their trust. Then I'd start hearing stories. Now, also we have the youth come as a visitor, students, especially from the Gulf area. They come as a visitor, whatever culture they have, they might bring with them. Some of them, they already come on the drugs already. So they're transferred to our kids. I was invited to San Diego State University to discuss issues with atheists. يعني ملحدون a lot of ملحدون. I was shocked. I went with the brother Omar Majid from student of Sheikh Warith bin Muhammad. We went together there to find out that the head of these clubs, Muslims from Kuwait, from Saudi Arabia, and you name it still exists in, okay, it still exists in San Diego. They said to the public, okay, no problem, they don't care. Okay, now, another thing, we had also 2 incidents happen in San Diego. 8 months ago, we lost a brother. He's only 21 years old. He got overdosed, so he passed away. It's also in the Facebooks and everywhere. Now, some they blame the imam, some they don't. Yeah, we need to work collectively, parents, imams, boards, focus on the youth.
Okay.
Especially.
Jazakallah khair, brother. Inshallah. We only got 2 minutes left. 1 minute. We got one brother.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Ayub Harun from California, Los Angeles, precisely. I would like to thank you all for coming, and Shahid with hard work, and Sheikh Imam Dr. Ghalayini. I was able to catch a very one-on-one conversation when we were stranded at the airport. Not the only time I was able to get a taste of Imam when there is no one but only you. So alhamdulillah, it's very beautiful to have you. And I really thank Allah for us being there for those long times so I can get to know you deep. Last year when we met in Dallas, I made a suggestion and I didn't see it coming in fruition. And I just wonder how we deal with the suggestion that we are giving during our conferences time and again. So we need to have a mechanism so that whatever is said this time, we can see some kind of changes or that we put into action. Last year, when we talk about the youth, the case, the issue is very central to our leadership and our role as imams. And I suggested 2 things, and I'm going to say it again, hopefully, inshallah, we'll be able to get into a program. Number 1 is either we allow each imam, to accompany one of the leading youth to one of the conferences in order to get the message back. Youth could talk to youth better than the imam talking to them sometimes. That's what they call peer, pressure. They can talk to each other, listen to what we said today more efficiently than saying it on a member. So either we allow each imam to bring, to accompany one of the youth, or the city that embraces or organizes the conference like Chicago, bring the youth. So we have a session only for the youth. So the way we have the groups, we can plant one youth in all the group, listen to him and benefit from the experience live and then translate it. But I said this last time, and we are still talking about the youth. We said important thing, but it hasn't got its way to implementation. So please let us move from just talking to practice. Last thing is I'm a chaplain working in the prison. I used to work in the masjid, and when I went to the prison, I said, Rabbi Sijna Habbi Ilayya Mimma Yad'un. I'm serious. I'm not inviting you to all abandon the masjid to come to prison. It's not a good place to be, but believe me, it's a better place. And I have youth, it's an amazing place, Allah. Someone asked me, where is the best place for the imam? I said, prison. But one thing before I leave, Imam, please. Just one thing, it's very important. I'm also calling upon all my imams and teachers that when you are imam, you are not only an imam to your community. You should also ask about the prisons around your masjid. You are responsible too. Try to make a point, visit them once in a month, once in 3 months. We are not doing it. I have a hard time bringing in volunteers. Volunteering is very important in Islam and we don't do it. So we need to develop it through our masjid. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
It's the last one, you're the last one.
Jazakallah khair. I would like to, this is the first time for me to attend the conference. I really enjoyed it.
And your name again?
My name is Jihad Qaddour.
Okay.
I'm the president of SRB. Okay. But I want to just some notice, maybe, I don't know if you do it or not, about the program as a feedback and suggestion. I would like to suggest to hire a full-time person to follow up with the issues and provide services to the imam, and really expand that one to be more and more, to really, because it's important for the imam to be connected all the time. The second thing, I'd like to, inshallah, the federation to launch a Facebook and be
and the social media, because it's very important. Use the latest tool, because sooner or later you have to involve with each other, and that would be good learning for everybody, inshallah, and sharing ideas and sharing news and experience. I think that would be very helpful. And also for the session, the structure of the conference, I'm suggesting to have like some main session and then parallel program to really discuss some issues like youth and do some, real, interaction things and really, we call it skill development. And that would help the imam here. At least they will come back with great experience. The last one, inshallah, I will say, I was expecting, because we have tons of issues, the ummah issues, to have those issues, because the imam is going to face a lot of questions. And when we discuss those here, at least we'll have some ideas from each other. We'll get to conclusion. And when we go back home, we know what to say and what to think. Jazakallah khair.
I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Shaheen, inshallah.
Jazakumullah kul khair, akhi. First of all, may I have your attention, please? Sheikh Adli, you are disturbing us.
You try to take him away.
You take him, you should not talk to him now.
Okay,
Jazakallah kul khair. Sit down here, brother. Sheikh Adli, please. No. Sheikh Ilyas, don't go there. No, don't go with him, akhi. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. You are not listening, يا شيخ.
Taking him. لا يبيع بعضكم فوق بيع بعض أخي. Come on.
Okay. إخواني بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. جزاكم الله كل خير. Just one comments, because as naif executive committee, I need to say something. He said, where is naif when there is isna ikna kir? Let me tell you something, that alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, naif been asked for, they asked us to help them, all these organizations you mentioned. naif proudly, we are the only organization have the update list for imams and centers. All these organizations, they called us to get this information. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, we are in the map. Everybody acknowledge us. Even we have been contacted by Japan, Switzerland, Australia, Sweden. Every week we have been contacted by all these countries as a naif North American Imams Federation. Even if you go to Seoul, South Korea, I've been invited for a conference there to represent imams in Arizona, in USA. And let me tell you something about youth. We've been invited, 1,800 persons been invited for this summit. Do you know how many young volunteers working for this summit? 13,000, wallah. And all of them, none of them have a belief or have a faith. They all non-believers. They don't believe in God. Do you know how many hours they work a day? 18 hours a day, wallah. What power they have to raise up such kids and we don't have? Just this is a question for each and every one of you. Last but not least, I would like to finish with Sam's presentation, one of our biggest sponsors. May Allah reward them for what they are doing for our Syrian brothers and sisters. The floor is yours. You have 10 minutes for your presentation. Then after that, please, we have to listen to announcement because we have something to do very important.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أول شيء مرحب فيكم بشيكاغو. On behalf of the Syrian American community, the Arab community, the Muslim community in Chicago, welcome to your city, and I'm really happy that you have your conference here. And I had the chance to meet many of you in different conferences. By the way, one of my hats used to be the Council of Islamic Organizations of Greater Chicago President up to a couple of years ago. So we have about 65 Islamic organizations in Chicago that are grouped under coalition, one coalition called the Council. And I'm really happy that the Imam Federation is making your conference here in Chicago. Anyway, the focus today is about, as you know, the worst humanitarian crisis in our lifetime, Syria. And you know, as an American Muslim, as a Syrian Muslim, I always teach my children to focus on our neighborhoods and on our city, because this is the most important thing for us, even though that most of us came from other countries. Most of us are immigrants. But at the same time, when you have a humanitarian crisis in the scale that we had in Syria, you cannot but focus on also what's happening. So I'm going to just show you some pictures, inshallah, and I hope that you are engaged with me. I know that you want to go to the Maghrib prayer. I just came in from the hospital, and I work as a critical care specialist. And the Imam has mentioned that we have children in Korea volunteering 18 hours a day. I can tell you that many of our members in the Syrian American Society, Syrian Medical American Society, also volunteer 20 and 30 and 40 hours every week, in addition to their work in medicine, in addition to their family time. And we appreciate what they are doing. Many of them go to medical missions inside Syria, risking their lives because they believe in saving lives. And our motto basically that we save life. As doctors, as Muslims, we believe that saving one life is as if saving the whole humanity. And this is our motto. Whoever saved one life as if he or she saved the whole humanity. Of course, this is ayat Quran Kareem. Can we? So Syria was recognized by the United Nations as the worst humanitarian crisis in our lifetime. 193,000 people were killed. 193,000 people were killed. Syria right now is the largest country in terms of the numbers of refugees in the world. We surpassed Afghanistan. Syria and Afghanistan are both Muslim countries. So right now, according to the United Nations, there's 3 million registered Syrian refugees. 3 million. Inside Syria, there's 6.5 million people who are internally displaced. That means they had to leave their neighborhoods or their homes or their villages or cities because it's not safe for them anymore. My family in Syria was displaced. My sister was in Syria also was displaced. Many of people who are from Syria, I see here Dr. Jihad also, who had similar situation. Every Syrian American has his family or her family affected by the crisis. We have whole villages, whole neighborhoods were destroyed completely. The number of people who are in need for assistance in Syria is 11 million people, half of the population. We live in America, we have a lot of blessings. Many of us have 2 cars and 3 cars and huge houses and so forth. But we have people in Syria who don't have food to eat. Of course, many of them are refugees, many of them are even living in cities. I spoke with my family last week, and they told me they don't have cooking gas, they don't have electricity, they don't have heating diesel, or mazot they call it. So imagine the situation in Syria, and it's getting worse. This is James Foley. This is one of the American journalists who went to Syria because he wanted to cover the picture, what's going on there. And before he went, 2 years ago, he called us in SAMS, and he told us that I know what's going on in Syria, and I would like to donate 1 ambulance to the Syrian people, because what's happening in Syria was targeting healthcare, hospitals, ambulances, and doctors. So he collected $10,000 from his friends, and he donated it to SAMS. Unfortunately, as you know, he went to Syria, he was kidnapped, and he was killed a couple of months ago. Tomorrow I'll be heading to Indiana, where we have another humanitarian, Brother Abdurrahman Kassim, who was also killed by ISIS, although he was trying to help the Syrian people. Many of our neighbors and colleagues who are non-Syrian are going to Syria to help because they believe that this is their humanitarian duty. And I hope that also you encourage your congregations to do the same thing. There is a lot of opportunities to help Syrians, whether they are in Turkey or Jordan or Lebanon, to help the Syrian American organizations that are doing medical relief. And sometimes we have to focus on what we do, not always focus on what is not being done. If every congregation, if every imam focused on their community and telling them that you can do this, you can donate, you can do prayer, you can volunteer your time, you can go on a trip to Turkey or Jordan or Lebanon, there's a lot of opportunity to help the children there, then I think that would be a good practice. This is of course what happened in August 21st of last year, when Assad regime gassed people while they are sleeping in East Al-Ghouta. 1,400 people were killed, many of them were children. This is a picture of the children who died while they were asleep with nerve gas. The Physicians for Human Rights details the attacks on healthcare professionals. What's happening in Syria is not only violation of Islamic ethics or international ethics, but it's violation of every international norm that we know, even during the conflict. The international community, Geneva Convention, have agreed that in the time of conflict, in the time of war, that physicians and doctors and nurses are allowed to treat the other side, even if the other side is your enemy, but you have to treat them. Of course, this is from our tradition. As you know, in our tradition, Salah ad-Din treated the head of the Crusaders. He sent him his own personal physician because he had fever. So this is also an Islamic tradition that you have to treat your enemy. And this is what's called medical neutrality. Doctors have the right to treat people even if they are from the enemy side. Of course, the Syrian government and some of the fighting parties like ISIS do not understand that, and they're not getting it. And they've been killing doctors, detaining doctors, and killing nurses, targeting hospitals and nurses because they are treating people who belong to the other side. Up to until now, more than 560 doctors and nurses were killed. 560 doctors and nurses were killed in Syria because they are implementing their humanitarian duty. When we graduate from medical school, we take the oath that we treat everyone regardless of their affiliation. In Syria, doctors are not allowed to do that. Because of that, 50% of Syrian doctors have forced to leave Syria, according to the World Health Organization. So what we do in SAMS, and SAMS, by the way, is not unique. There's other organizations that are doing the same thing, but we are focusing on healthcare. We are focusing on saving lives. But you have many other humanitarian organizations that are working inside Syria. Some of them, Zakat Foundation, LIFE, as you know, as Syria for Relief and Development, Syrian Sunrise Foundation, and many others. And we had a coalition of American Relief Coalition. We called it American Relief Coalition for Syria, where we have 22 member organizations that are doing medical and humanitarian relief inside Syria. So like you have the federation of many imams, we have a federation of organizations that are doing relief in Syria. And I ask you to support this coalition. This is a picture I took myself in my last mission to Aleppo. This is Dr. Abdulaziz Hassan, who's one of the few remaining surgeons in Aleppo. And this is his hospital, which was targeted by barrel bombs. By the way, do you know, any of you knows what's the barrel bomb? If you know what's barrel bomb, raise your hand. Okay, some of you know it, some of you don't know it. Barrel bomb is baramil, they call it, barrels, big barrels stuffed with TNT, 300 to 400 kilograms of TNT, and shrapnels and gasoline. And it is very cheap to do. It's produced locally in Syria, and it's used by the Assad regime to depopulate civilian areas and attack on hospitals, bakeries, and schools. So what happens in Aleppo, and I witnessed it in my own eyes, that you have helicopters or fighter jets flying in the sky, and you see it like small dots, and actually sometimes you walk in Aleppo and you see people pointing to the sky, and you hear the sound of the helicopter. Then it throws this barrel, and which looks like very small dot, and then this barrel becomes bigger and bigger and bigger then until it explodes in nearby location. It could be a bakery, it could be a school, it could be a hospital, it could be your family building that is destroyed. So this is a barrel bomb. Every day there's 20 to 30 barrel bombs thrown in Aleppo. This is one of the main hospitals in Aleppo called Al-Kindi, Mujamma Al-Kindi Al-Tibbi. It cost the Syrian people $300 million, completely destroyed because of the crisis. This is the impact of barrel bomb on a block. So sometimes you may imagine that barrel bomb will create small hole or will maybe kill 1 or 2 people, but this is a huge bomb. It's a dumb bomb. These are some of the victims of the barrel bomb. This girl here, she made it. This child here did not make it. The child also injured because of the barrel bombing. Not only barrel bombing, but also we have snipers in Syria from both sides, from the government and also from the fighting party, and usually the victims are the civilians. So there is a corridor called Ma'bar al-Maut in Aleppo, which separates between eastern Aleppo and western Aleppo, And when people pass through it, then the snipers from the government side snipe at them. And sometimes they play games. So one of the doctors who are from England documented in one day that only pregnant women were killed by snipers. And he actually took pictures of a fetus inside the belly of his woman, of his mom, which is a victim of a barrel bomb. This is Al Yarmouk camp, a Palestinian camp in Damascus. As you know, some of you probably know this picture. This is not Photoshop.
No.
This is not manufactured.
No, this is correct.
This is accurate picture of Al Yarmouk camp in Damascus, which was under siege by the government for a year and a half.
Yes.
And the government did not allow United Nations agencies and ICRC to get into the camp to give humanitarian assistance to the people until that day. And that was like a few months ago. And when they allowed the United Nations, people came because they wanted to eat.
Yeah.
So they received some handouts, which probably will be will leave them, maybe less hungry. This is one also of the victims in Al-Hajar al-Aswad in Damascus. This is not the Auschwitz camp that we hear about it in the Holocaust, but this is in Damascus, just close to the center of the capital of Syria. These are some of the doctors who are treating victims in Aleppo. Look at the desperation, go back, in his eyes. The administrator of this hospital told me that please send us anything you can send. You can send us medical supplies, gloves and medications, and also send us coffins, because we run out of coffins and body bags. Chemical weapon instructions for civilians. Of course, SAMS has been doing many things. Next. This is one of the victims of the siege in East Al-Ghouta. We have polio surfaced because there is no vaccinations for many children who are under siege. Next.